cake's baking, I like to make the ganache because the ganache, to be spreadable for this cake, needs to cool down and become thick like buttercream. We're going to whip it up in the end, but first we need to get it to cool down. The first thing I need to do is I'm going to measure out 24 ounces because I'm using this for the filling and for the top of the cake. So I'm doing a double batch. The recipe you have, though, is the amount that is needed for this cake, which is a double batch. So I need 24 ounces, and because I'm using those green curls on the cake, I am making this white chocolate ganache green. So I'm just using the green melties. That's 23, and that is 24 ounces. We want this measured out first before we heat up the whipping cream. We're now going to heat up the whipping cream in the microwave. We want to bring this just to a boil. Not boiling hard, but just getting to a boil. Let's put it in the microwave. This is 24 ounces of heavy cream. That is 3 cups. I'm going to start by letting this cook for 4 minutes because that's a lot of liquid. After that 4 minutes, I'm going to stop it and I'm going to stir it. And I will probably start checking it after 3 minutes is up because it might boil sooner, but usually with that much liquid, it takes 4 or more minutes. I will come back and show you what we do when it's getting ready and it starts boiling. This has been going for about 3 minutes. It's not boiling yet, but liquids in the microwave get hot pockets. So I want to pull this out of the microwave, and it is steaming. And I'm going to stick the spoon in, and I'm just going to stir it to make sure that the heat is evenly distributed in the milk. And then I'm going to stick it in, and for this last minute, I'm going to watch it because the fact that it is steaming so much, I think it's going to start boiling really quick. It may not take the full minute. So I'm going to watch it this last minute, and when it starts boiling, I'm going to turn it off and pull it out. The 4 minutes is basically up. It's just steamed. It hasn't yet come to a boil, but I still want to pull it out and stir it. And at this point, I'm going to do it at 1 minute intervals, watching it the whole time so that I can pull it out when it starts boiling. And it may take a half a minute, it may take a minute, but we just want to keep watching it until it starts boiling. It has now been 5 minutes, still not quite boiling, but because I don't want to get that hot pocket of superheated milk in there, and I can see bubbles forming around the sides. So with the bubbles forming around the sides, I'm going to stir it, and I'm going to go again. But this time I'm thinking it's probably only going to take about a half a minute. So I'm just going to do it now in half a minute increments because it is all but ready to boil. So I want to keep a very close eye on it, and I'm just going to do it half a minute at a time. If it goes another full half, oh, no, there it is. Okay, so just as quickly as that, see if it's still boiling when I get it out. You can see that it is boiling. Now what we're going to do is we want to pour this cream over our chocolate, totally covering the chocolate. And then we're going to let that sit for 1 minute. So I'm going to time that for a full minute. Come back with you and show you what we do after it has sat for 1 full minute. Our chocolate has now sat for a minute. As you look at this, you'll see it's green. What we're going to do now is we're going to stir this. And we're going to just keep stirring it until it all turns a nice, rich green color, which is the ganache. Right now it's really milky and you've got those lumps of chocolate. Normally when I make ganache, I like to use just a little bit higher quality chocolate than these chocolate melts. But since I wanted the chocolate to match the chocolate curls that we made, I'm making the chocolate ganache with the same chocolate that I used for the chocolate curls. So it may not be quite as rich, and it'll probably be just about as smooth. It's not as high quality of chocolate, but it is going to make the whole cake kind of blend and go together. The other thing I'm going to do with this chocolate when it is all done is I'm going to add some lime oil to it. And I'm not going to do that quite yet. I want this to cool before I add that lime oil. I will add the lime oil when we get it ready to start whipping it. I'll put the lime oil in and then we'll whip this up to get it to buttercream consistency. Now as you look at that, it's very runny. There's a little bit there that I still need to get off, but this is really coming together and it's really looking like green soup right now. But when we put it on the cake, it'll look more like green buttercream, but it's going to be the chocolate ganache instead of buttercream. And I'm just stirring a little bit more. You know, I could stir this as long as I want because it's not going to hurt it to get it stirred. I just want to make sure it's very well mixed in there and I have all of the chocolate dissolved. And now you see there are absolutely no chocolate lumps in here. It is just really smooth. If I were going to pour this on a cake, I would pour it on right now. But since I want it to become buttercream consistency, what I'm going to do with this ganache, instead of pouring it on the cake, is I'm going to put it in the fridge for a couple of hours and let it set up. But I could put it in overnight if I wanted to, and then pull it out and bring it to room temperature and mix it up tomorrow morning. I don't know that I want to keep it in overnight, but you could do that with the ganache. If you were going to keep it overnight, you would want to cover it. But since I'm just going to put it in there until it is starting to set up, I'm not going to need to cover it. So I made this ganache while the cakes were baking. My hope is that this ganache is cool enough to use by the time the cakes are cool enough for us to level and torte them. I will come back when the cakes are done and this is set up to show you what we do. All right, our ganache has now been setting up for several hours, but I did want to get this done tonight. So I've brought it out and it's still running because we haven't whipped up the cream that's in this yet. So I'm going to use my hand mixer because I have this bowl. And I am going to whip this on high speed until it is the consistency of buttercream. And because this has whipping cream in it, it will thicken up like whipping cream does. I almost forgot to add my lime oil. Now this is not extract. This is actually lime oil. So it's a lot more concentrated than extract. So I don't want like a tablespoon or teaspoon. I just want a few drops. And it's actually going to be a matter of tasting it. So I'm going to put that amount in to start with, mix it in. Now you'll notice when I lift this up, it is still running, but it is thicker than when we started. And I've only been beating it for about a minute. So I'll come back when it's totally thickened up and ready to spread. You're noticing this is thickening up quite nicely. If I turn this off, it's forming soft peaks. It's not quite the spreadable consistency that I want it to be. So I will keep beating it a little bit longer. But it'll probably only take about 1 or 2 more minutes to get it where I want it to be. Now remember, this will harden up more when I put it in the fridge. So it doesn't have to be really hard. In fact, I don't want it too hard. But it needs to be thick enough that I can pipe it. And I don't think it's quite there yet, thick enough to pipe. So I'll be back with you in just a couple of minutes when it is thick enough to pipe. As you look at this now, you can see it is forming pretty good peaks. So I think it's about ready for us to pipe and to torte the cake.